right, so I'm just going to jump right into welcoming our next speaker. He is one of the founders of the International NLP Trainers Association, and he has been called by some here today the Obi-Wan, the Swami. He is a man who could be introduced for at least an hour if you really went into depth of his knowledge or his experience or what impact he had on the lives of those you know. But I'm just going to let his information speak for itself. So put your hands together for Dr. Wyatt Woodsmall.
Thank you, Johnny. It's not about me, it's about you. Because you and you and you and every one of us has a serious problem. And if we don't do something about it, our entire future is at stake. The problem is this. There's a segment of our population that are naive, that are innocent, that are being punished, that are being abused. They're sent to what we call the mind prison. From the age of 6, they're consigned for 12 years to suffer in a mind prison. And in prisons, even lawyers, even prisoners have advocates, they have lawyers, but these people have no advocates. They have no one because you and you have failed to do your job and have failed to protect them. These are our children. These are our future. And they are being abused under horrible circumstances, and it's time we do something about it. The mind prison is a conspiracy between the government and parents to give up responsibility for training and educating the youth of our society. It started when the Industrial Revolution, when the idea is that we wanted compliant people that would work on an assembly line. That day is gone. We live in the age of information, the age in which critical thinking is absolutely imperative. And we tell our children even worse, the great lie. You remember the great lie? You've probably told your children the great lie. The great lie is that education will help you succeed in life and get ahead. When all you got to do is look around, and many of the most successful people have no education at all. They went out in the world and got a job and got ahead. One of the things that's incredible, Daniel Goleman has done exhaustive research on emotional intelligence, and all of his research indicates that in every area of life, the people that succeed are not high IQ, but high emotional intelligence. And there's no school in the world where people are taught emotional intelligence. What kind of a diseducational system is this, when the single most important factor to determine success in life is not even addressed in the diseducational system? The diseducational system is only focused on content, trying to cram more information, whereas the most important thing anyone can ever learn is how to learn. The diseducational system doesn't understand that learning only occurs when there's behavioral change. Learning what and learning the changes of life are two totally different things. And cramming more content into people's heads is a waste of time. We live in a world in which we're drowning in data. Data is increasing at an exponential rate, and most of it is absolutely worthless and irrelevant. That small percent that is relevant has to do with something that is about our outcomes. If it informs us about our outcomes, it's information. Organized information is knowledge. Knowledge plus experience equals understanding. Understanding plus more diverse experience equals wisdom. We don't need to cram data into people's heads. What this society desperately needs is wisdom, is wise choices. And we teach people to memorize, but we don't even teach them how to memorize. I mean, that's insane. But we grade them on their ability to regurgitate information on paper that's totally meaningless, that they're going to forget. What you memorize, you forget. So the whole system is based on this memorization, which is just total nonsense. And it doesn't transfer to the real world. It doesn't transfer to life. That's the greatest tragedy. The job of the school system should be to pass on the genius of past generations to future generations. Why is it in certain areas like the music and the arts, we may have to go back hundreds of years to find the people that we consider to be the masters in those areas? What happened to the school system? What happened to passing on and growing on the shoulders of our ancestors who were genius? It's not happening. And the student is made responsible for their own learning. We pile everything on their heads. More homework, more work, work hard, and then we lie that that will be the key to success when we all know it's not. It's torture. We take children at an early age when all the research from Montessori to Piaget indicates that they should be out being healthy, active children. But what we got to do is we got to put them in the custodial institution. The parents can't wait to get them in school 2 years before they should be there. And we tell them to sit still and shut up. That's called punishment. And the school system shamelessly does it, and you and you and you and everybody out there is responsible for allowing this travesty to continue. It doesn't have to be this way. So, career preparation. Skills are not transferable to the business world. When the people get out of school, the business world gets them and that has to retrain them for careers. And business needs people with critical thinking. Why even bother to go to school if you're not being prepared for a career in life? Why waste 12 years of your life or more in the mind prison when it's doing nothing to allow you to get success? And once again, success in business requires emotional intelligence, the single thing most correlated with success, and nobody teaches it to you. Business has to retrain people once they leave school. Business is eventually going to need to take over education. Somebody needs to take it over. Okay, I want to tell you about two remarkable educators, one of whom I had the great privilege, my wife Marilyn and I, to work with over several years. His name is Michel Thomas. You've probably never heard of him, even though he was probably the greatest educator of the 20th century. Tragically, he passed away 3 years ago at 90 years of age. He started off, he was born in Poland, and in his life, he witnessed the fall of 4 democracies. He realized what a fragile thing a democracy is. And the reason they fell is because the educational systems were designed in order to produce conforming, law-abiding citizens, as opposed to creative thinkers and critical judgment. And Michel would sit there and say, I have great sadness when I look at the situation today. You don't realize how fragile democracy is. You don't realize how fragile it is. And it's getting worse, not better. Michel was a war hero. He did amazing things. He started off, he was born in Poland. He escaped when the Nazis came to power. He went to Austria. He escaped there. He went to France. He joined the French resistance. He was captured. He was put in deportation camps. He escaped. He was put in slave labor camps. He escaped. He joined the French resistance. When the American army came in, they realized what an asset he was, and he joined up with American intelligence. He was the one that captured the documents a half hour before they were going to be pulped, which is all the Nazi Party records, which are the basis of the Berlin Document Center. He was the one that captured the U-2 scientists just before the Russians got a hold of them. He captured the most difficult and wanted war criminal that the U.S. had. He created a bogus organization and convinced 20,000 Nazi officers after the war that he was from headquarters, and they gave control of the organization over to him, and all were captured. That's just where he started off. After the war, he came to the United States, and he remembered something one of his teachers had said. He said, "No one knows anything about the learning process of the human mind." And he thought, that's tragic. And all his life, that stuck in his head. And when he got to the United States, he said, what do I want to do? And he said, I want to learn about the learning process of the human mind. And how can I do that? Well, the best way to do it is teach. And what is the most foreign thing I could teach? And immediately, foreign languages. So he started off, he opened the Polyglot Institute in Beverly Hills. And he started teaching people to speak foreign languages. He started taking 12 weeks to do it. And along the way, he learned about the learning process of the human mind. And over a period of 30 years, that 12 weeks shrank to 6 weeks and shrank to 5 days. He was able to teach people to speak a language proficiently in 5 days, and he spent the last 30 years of his life doing that. When I first heard it, I didn't believe it. I thought it was impossible. But when I met him, I quickly realized that he was the real thing. Most universities fail to teach people to speak a language proficiently in 3 or 4 years. He did it in 5 years, 5 days. And his students were a virtual who's who of everyone in Hollywood, of politicians, of industrial leaders. Okay, there are several things that are even more amazing. He taught people to speak a language proficiently in 5 days, but the way he did it was totally different than the way the diseducational system normally operates. There were no textbooks. There were no note-taking. There was no homework. There was no memorizing. And most interesting of all, if you made a mistake, whose fault was it? It was Michelle's fault. As Michelle would say, if you make a mistake, it's my fault. It's up to me to figure out what to do about it, and don't try to take my job away from me. Whereas in the diseducational system today, we point at the kids, we point at excuses or something else. Michelle didn't take any excuses. He took people and he worked with them, and he was able to teach them, and if they made a mistake, he didn't even let them know they made a mistake, because if they knew, they wouldn't have made it. And pointing it out to them only reinforced it. And he'd go back and ask himself, what is it that they forgot? And he'd reteach it, and then he'd come back to it. And they'd go, oh, well, before I said this, that was wrong. Obviously, it's this. The key is teach for understanding. What you memorize, you forget. What you memorize, you forget. What you learn and understand, you remember. Let me tell you about another amazing educator. I want to tell you about what's called Project Follow-Through. From 1964 to 1995, this was the most expensive study in the history of education on the planet. $1 billion and 20,000 students were involved. This started under the Lyndon Johnson days with the No Child Left Behind program. What it was concerned about was to reduce the disparity between low and high performance students by improving low performance, so no child would be left behind. It was to research what educational programs really work, not what the diseducational system keeps repeating and repeating that's an absolute failure and doesn't work, but to find out what really works. How to best teach the fundamental academic skills of reading, writing, listening, speaking, information, organization, and math. In other words, how do children learn best? And this project came to the following results. A curriculum and instructional methodology called direct instruction, developed by Siegfried Engelmann, another person you've never heard of, and his associates, was the winner by every single measure. 2/3 of the things studied, of the 12 methods studied, produced no results or negative results. And in every category, from academic to cognitive to affective, even the things that we're going to try to teach self-esteem failed, and direct instruction succeeded. It beat everything, everything. The direct instruction model of teaching and learning delivered unequivocally higher scores than any other model, and it continues to do so. So do we have it taught in every school in the country? Okay, a little bit about the direct instruction philosophy. We're not going to talk about your difficulties to learn. Rather, we will take you where you are, and we will teach you. And the extent to which you fail is our failure, not yours. We will not cop out by saying he can't learn. Rather, we will say, I failed to teach him, so I had better take a good look at what I did and try to figure out a better way. If the student hasn't learned, the teacher hasn't taught. This is the same thing that Michelle preached. The teacher assumes full responsibility for academic success of the classroom, not parents, not students, not special educational teachers, not administrators, not wishful thinking. The bottom line, if you want children to accelerate their learning and improve their behaviors, use direct instruction and Michelle's methods. Now, the problem is teachers didn't like it. Teachers' unions didn't like it. Teachers' colleges didn't like it. So it's little used today. So much for $1 billion of your money, of taxpayer money, that went into scientific research. And the educators didn't like the results, so they simply ignored it. Where this should be taught in every classroom in the world, because it's the one thing proven to work. $1 billion down the drain because educators did not like it. So why isn't direct instruction used more? The answer, this is a quote, the answer lies largely in the near criminal behavior of most of the educational schools in America. These ivory tower schools know next to nothing about positive discipline and how to teach basic skills. They mask their ignorance behind academic posturing and jargon, but they never get around to teaching prospective teachers how to really succeed in a classroom of disparate students. With few exceptions, teacher education is gutless, unaccountable, and without intellectual rigor. Now then, Administrators know how to administrate. They don't know how to teach, and they don't know how to train teachers. So what about the teachers? Well, teachers are well-meaning people, but they all want to be creative. So in every classroom, every day, everybody's having their creative lesson. I don't know about you, but I haven't met a lot of really creative people in my life. And I can't imagine that in every classroom and every lesson, we've got a creative people out there. We need the direct instruction design experts to be the ones that are preparing the curriculum. The American Academy of Science did a study on education in the classroom. They came up with 4 recommendations. First, teach for understanding. To teach is to explain. No memorization, understanding. This is what Michelle's been doing for years, for 60 years. This is what Engelman does. The critical importance of pre-existing knowledge. It's what you think you know that is wrong that is the problem. So therefore, we've got to have a method that then uncovers and corrects that. The most important thing you can learn is how to learn. We're living in an age in which now you're going to have to relearn a career probably 2 to 4 times in your lifetime, which means learning is not something that just happens when you're a kid. It goes on for your entire life, so you better learn how to learn, because that's the most important thing. And does the diseducational system teach you how to learn? No. Michelle and Engelman's methods teach you how to learn. And the transfer problem, how to get it out of the classroom into the world. Applications. If you give people a fish, you feed them for a day. If you teach them how to fish, you feed them for a lifetime. So what is the ideal educational system? No tension. No memorization. To learn to read and write and speak 4 languages in the first 4 years of school. With Michelle's methods, that's possible. There's nothing that could do more to promote global understanding than if we could speak multiple languages. Americans are the most chauvinistic country on earth. They don't care about learning other languages. We should learn languages when we can, 4 languages plus our own as a kid. And learn how to learn how to learn. The most important thing we can learn in school. And teach people emotional intelligence. And teach people entrepreneurial skills that they can use in the real world. So what will it take? We need to take control of the educational system away from the school boards, away from the teachers' unions, away from the teachers' colleges. We need to get business involved. We need to get parents involved. We need to demand direct instruction in the Michelle Thomas method. And for this to happen, it's up to you. You need to go to your school meeting and stand up and say, I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. Thank you.